Skip the resort. My wife wants just family. 7 words. No apology, no explanation, no, we'll talk later. Just that. And the deafening sound of my heart pounding inside my chest as I read the message again and again, as if the meaning might change if I stared hard enough. My suitcase had been packed for 2 days. Not in a rushed, careless way. It was the kind of suitcase a woman packs when she still believes she will be welcome. A light dress folded in tissue paper, brand new sunscreen, the book I'd been saving for when I finally rest, and my medications in a toiletry bag with tiny handwritten labels. I had even printed the resort vouchers and placed them in a cream envelope on the kitchen counter, as if paper could make a promise binding, as if ink could protect me from what was coming. After years living in survival mode, paying bills, fixing problems, holding everyone together, I had made a dangerous decision. I allowed myself to hope this trip would be different, that I wouldn't just be the woman who funds, fixes, and disappears. That, for once, I'd be Mom. But that text shoved me right back into the place where I'd been quietly pushed for years. Outside. I read it one more time. Just family. As if I were what, exactly? An acquaintance? An old nanny? A card with legs? My hand trembled around the phone. The worst part was how clearly I could picture the scene. My son, thumb heavy on the screen, typing fast, not looking me in the eye even through pixels. And next to him, his wife. That particular smile on her face that never looked like joy, only like victory. I tried calling. It rang, and rang, straight to voicemail. No answer, no, are you okay? No, let me explain. Just silence. Then my phone vibrated again. Ping. A cold automated notification. Your suite code has been updated. Suite code. For the resort I wasn't supposed to go to. I stood there, suitcase by the door, staring at that message. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt real fear. Not the vague fear of being forgotten. Not only the ache of rejection. It was sharper, more practical, almost like an accountant's nightmare. If she had access to the suite code, she had access to what I'd paid, and to what I had never authorized. Because that code wasn't only about a room. It was a key to my money, my credit, my name. And if someone was moving in the dark with my name, the risk wasn't just being left out of a trip. It was losing what I had taken a lifetime to build. I looked at the envelope with the printed vouchers, at my card still linked to the reservation, at my suitcase waiting like a loyal dog by the front door. 2 options stared back at me. I could swallow one more humiliation in silence. Or I could open the door I had kept locked for years out of love. The door where I guarded every receipt, every email, every little favor nobody thought I remembered. To understand how I got to that moment, suitcase packed, heart cracked, code changed, I have to go back to where the erosion really began. It didn't start with a text. It started with something much smaller. So small that, at the time, I pretended not to see it. Before she existed in my son's life, Mom was a title he wore with pride. He bragged about me. He picked me up for dinners. He asked my opinion. He would say, "My mom knows how to handle this," like I was his secret weapon. After he got married, the tone didn't change overnight. That would have been easier to spot. It changed slowly, a tiny degree at a time, the kind of slow that tricks you into thinking, it's just a phase, it's just adjustment. I should be flexible. First came the throwaway phrases. "You're overreacting." "You don't remember it right. We'll handle it, Mom." Then came the careful corrections in public wrapped in silk. "Don't say that in front of them, please. Let's not bring up politics tonight, okay? You're being too intense, Mom. People don't get you." So I started to shrink. I called it maturity. I told myself I was respecting their new family. I convinced myself that if I made myself smaller, easier, quieter, I would be invited in more. If I didn't make scenes, I would keep my place. But it was never about me being easy. It was about me being useful. When their car broke down, my phone suddenly worked perfectly. His voice turned sweet. "Mom, I hate to ask, but when the renovation ran over budget, there were long voice notes, full of numbers and stress. When they needed help just this month with some expense, he knew exactly which contact to tap. But birthdays? I found out through social media stories. A cake, candles, her family around. And me, cropped out by omission. Family gatherings? I'd see photos later, full tables and matching shirts, with captions like "everyone together," followed by my silence. And when I tried to bring it up, the response always smelled the same. False protection. It's for your own good. You get too tired. You don't like that kind of crowd anyway. Better if you rest at home, Mom. The isolation didn't come as one slammed door. It came as a sequence of small, polite closures. A forgotten invite here, "we thought you were busy there," a message left unread, an answer coming 6 hours later with just a short emoji. My phone stopped being something that rang. It became a device that only lit up when a bill was due. Then came a specific night, the one that burned itself into my memory like a scar. They had invited a few people over to celebrate something small, nothing big. I arrived with a dessert I'd made myself, still warm, carrying it like an offering. In the living room, her parents were already seated on the couch, drinks in hand. My son was in the kitchen pouring wine. "Let's take a family picture before dinner," she said, voice bright. I smiled and moved closer, instinctively stepping toward them, adjusting my blouse, smoothing my hair. A waiter from the catering staff, they'd hired help for the night, lifted the phone to frame the shot. "Wait," she said, turning to me with that gentle, daggered smile. "Could you just keep an eye on Eli? He's too close to the stairs. We'll be quick." My grandson was playing on the floor, happy, oblivious. "Oh, sure," I answered automatically, stepping back. It sounded so reasonable, so grandma-like, that it took my brain a second to catch up. I watched them line up, her parents in the center, my son with his arm around her sister on the side. The waiter snapped several photos. They laughed, checked the screen together, approved. "Perfect. One more just in case," she said. Not once did she look at me and say, "Come here, Mom." I stood there behind the camera, holding onto Eli's little hand as he wiggled, and felt something bitter climb my throat. I wasn't in the picture. I was the babysitter making the picture possible. Later that night, she posted the photo. Caption, "Just us, my whole world." I stared at those words as I sat on my couch in my own silent house, the dessert dish empty beside me. Just us. I had carried this boy in my body, worked 2 jobs to raise him, buried his father, learned to live again. And somehow, in the official record of that evening, I had been promoted to the invisible help. Even then, I kept helping. Because love, when it's desperate, tries to fix itself with more effort, more patience, more money. You keep thinking, if I just do a little more, they'll see me again. So when the resort trip came up, I did what I always did. I made things easier. I offered to help with the cost. I handled the booking. I thought, if nothing else, at least we'll be together. And still, I was cut with a 7-word text. That night, when the sweet code changed on my phone, and I opened my card app to see a pre-authorization for an amount I would never have approved, I finally saw the pattern for what it was. This wasn't just about me being inconvenient emotionally. This was about me being useful financially. And once useful became dangerous, I knew what the next label would be. Incapable. The word incapable didn't hit me out of nowhere. It had been floating under the surface for a while, in a doctor's appointment where she insisted on answering for me, in a joke she made about senior moments when I misplaced my keys. But it was only after the resort that I understood. It wasn't a joke. It was rehearsal. The morning after the Just Family message and the sweet code notification, I went into my home office and opened the drawer nobody else cared about. To them, it was just paper. To me, it was armor. Blue folder, receipts, emails, contracts, screenshots. I am organized because life forced me to be. I became a widow too early. For years, I was the one dealing with hospitals, mortgages, taxes. I learned the hard way. If you don't keep records, someone will keep them for you, and almost never in your favor. I laid everything out on the desk. The resort confirmation with my name as primary guest, my credit card statement showing the original charge, the email chain where I had handled the booking, and then the new notification, concierge upgrade, private suite access. Requested with my email. I hadn't clicked anything. I hadn't called. I hadn't logged in. How? That's when a small memory slid back into place, like a puzzle piece I'd swept aside months ago. "Send me the confirmation code. It's just to adjust the transfer time," she'd texted, followed by a heart emoji and a "you're an angel." I had sent it because I wanted to avoid conflict, because saying no still felt like betrayal. Back then, it looked harmless, almost helpful. Now, with the blue folder open and extra charges on my statement, it looked like a key I'd handed straight into a thief's palm. I called the resort. My voice sounded calm even though I could feel my pulse in my fingertips. Good morning. I received a suite code updated notification, but I did not authorize any change. I need to confirm what's on my reservation. The concierge asked for my details, then went very quiet. Ma'am, please hold for a moment. That moment stretched. I could almost hear the clicks on the keyboard, the scrolling, the frown forming on a stranger's face miles away. When she came back, her tone had shifted, still polite, but edged with caution. Ma'am, our system shows a request to modify the registered guests and add exclusive room access based on something labeled family guidance. There have also been attempts to add a secondary payer using your profile. I will need to verify your identity now. Family guidance. Such a clean phrase for such a dirty move. There it was. She was practicing. If she could control access to my room and my charges, the next logical step was to control access to my accounts, to my decisions, to my signature. When I saw how she had manipulated access and charges without ever confronting me directly, I understood the real trajectory. The resort wasn't the end game. It was the test run. The next label would be incapable, to push me out of the way legally, to manage my life as if I were a confused old woman instead of a very lucid obstacle. I hung up, and this time, I didn't cry. No tears, just a very cold, steady anger. I picked up the phone again and called Mark. Not a lawyer I'd found in a panic, but the one who had handled my affairs quietly for years. The one who doesn't shout or grandstand. He just resolves. Mark, I need you to listen closely, I said. My son told me not to come to the resort because his wife wants just family. At the same time, my card is being used for upgrades I did not authorize, and the resort says there are requests to change guest access using my email. He didn't gasp. He didn't dramatize. He asked the only question that mattered. Do you have documentation, screenshots, proof the reservation and the card are in your name? I looked at my desk. The blue folder open like a mouthful of teeth. I have everything, I said. Good, he replied. Then we won't argue feelings. We'll argue facts. He laid out a 3-step plan so calmly it almost felt like he'd been expecting this call someday. Step 1. I would stop speaking to my son directly about anything related to the trip or money. No more texts, no calls, nothing that could be twisted. Step 2. I would document every single charge, notification, and attempt to change anything on the reservation or card. Screenshots with timestamps, emails forwarded to him, names, dates, even the hold music if I had to. Step 3. We would use the resort as a stage, not for drama, but for evidence. The place where they wanted me erased would become the place where everything came to light. On record, in writing. Then he asked a question that pulled the ground a little under my feet. Is there any property, account, or investment that your son uses as if it were his, even informally? I closed my eyes. I knew exactly what he was asking. Yes, there was a property. A small apartment he sometimes called ours, even though the title was in my name. A joint account for emergencies where lately the emergencies had all been his. And do you have the title documents for those? I opened another drawer, another folder. More paper the others thought was old stuff. Yes, I said. Good. Bring everything. The resort is just the rehearsal. The guardianship and control over your estate would be the final show if we let it get that far. I looked at the blue folder, at the printed emails, at the card statement. For the first time, I wasn't just a hurt mother. I was a woman standing at the edge of a theft lined with polite phrases and family excuses. And I decided, if they wanted a stage, they would have one. But this time, I wouldn't be behind the camera. I would be in the front row. And if they tried to call me incapable, they would have to do it in front of someone who knew my full name, my rights, and the legal weight of a well-kept screenshot. If I had signed that paper that day, I wouldn't just have lost some vacation money. I would have handed them the perfect bridge from "we're just organizing the trip" to "she's not capable of handling her own affairs." Everything they needed to build a case against me, using my own goodwill as evidence. The resort was only a few hours away. I drove there alone, not to beg, not to stir up family drama. I went for one reason, to see the trap with my own eyes before it snapped shut, and to make sure this time it would close on the right necks. The lobby looked like every expensive lobby. Too calm, Fresh flowers, soft music, staff trained to smile with their eyes. The kind of perfect surface where cruelty can happen without anyone ever raising their voice. Ms. Shh, the concierge asked, checking my name on the screen. When I nodded, he offered a rehearsed smile. We've prepared a private room so we can discuss your reservation with discretion. Of course they had. Someone had arranged that. Someone confident enough to think I'd show up alone, confused, ready to sign whatever they slid across the table. The private room was small, but elegant. A round table, 2 chairs on one side, one on the other, like an unspoken alignment had already been drawn. She was already there. My daughter-in-law sat like she owned the air, back straight, phone face down beside an envelope. Red, glossy, deliberate. Next to it, a metallic pen gleamed under the light, staged like a prop. My son stood behind her chair, not sitting, not moving toward me. He avoided my eyes, the way you avoid looking at a mirror you know won't be kind. Good thing you came, she said, smile already halfway in place. This will be so much easier. Easier. As if I were a cable subscription they wanted to cancel. She slid the red envelope toward me with 2 fingers. It's just a temporary authorization, she continued, voice calm and soothing. To help us sort out some things with the reservation, avoid stress, keep everything smooth. You know, for your health. Travel can be so tiring. There it was again. Health. Said like a concern, wielded like a chain. My son finally spoke. Mom, please, just sign it so we can check in and fix all this. We're already late. I opened the envelope. Inside was a document printed on the resort's letterhead. The logo at the top, neat lines, lots of legal language written by someone who knew exactly which words made people's eyes glaze over. There were 3 main sections. Authorization to change reservation holder. Addition of authorized payer for charges. Emergency access for charges and incidentals in the event of guest incapacity. That last word sat on the page like poison. Incapacity. Buried halfway down, in smaller text, there was a clause allowing temporary representation in decisions related to travel expenses and family-related estate matters arising from this reservation. Estate. They were turning a resort form into a stepping stone. Once I signed there, it would be so easy to say, she already gave us authorization before, we're just extending it. She gets confused. It's safer this way. I breathed in slowly, closed the envelope again, and set it back on the table, my fingertips resting on top. Let's read this out loud, I said, my voice steady. And let's have everything properly recorded. She laughed, short, sharp, nervous. Why all the drama? She asked. It's just a form. You're making this bigger than it is. At that moment, the door opened. The resort manager stepped in carrying a folder. Behind him, Mark walked in, suit, briefcase, calm eyes. My son went white. Ms. Quirr, the manager began, nodding to me first, not to them. Thank you for coming. We've reviewed the account activity connected to your reservation and card. He set the folder down and opened it, revealing printed logs and highlighted lines. Our records show unauthorized access attempts using your email, multiple efforts to change the reservation holder, and an attempt to add an authorized payer under your profile name without verbal confirmation from you. That violates our internal protocols. My daughter-in-law reached for the red envelope, trying to slide it back toward herself, but Mark placed his hand gently on the table, stopping her movement without even touching her. This is a misunderstanding, she said quickly. We're just trying to make things practical for her. She gets overwhelmed. Mark's voice came in low and precise, each word cutting cleaner than if he'd yelled, "It's not a misunderstanding. I have the original booking confirmation in her name. I have the text where you requested the confirmation code just to adjust the transfer. I have the card statement with charges labeled concierge upgrade, private suite access that she never authorized. And now we have this document, which attempts to link travel charges to broader estate decisions. This isn't practicality, it's a pattern." She looked at my son, eyes suddenly wide, silently demanding backup. He opened his mouth, closed it. Looked at me, then at the manager, then at Mark. For the first time, he seemed to realize there were more witnesses in the room than he'd planned for. I just thought it was to help," he muttered, words collapsing in his throat. The manager straightened his shoulders. "Ma'am," he said to me, ignoring their exchange, "we are formally noting that you are the primary reservation holder and card owner. Any attempt by third parties to alter this reservation, change access, or use your card without direct confirmation will be blocked and documented. We can also flag your profile for any future irregular activities. My daughter-in-law stood abruptly. I'm not going to sit here and be accused like this, she snapped. Yes, you are, the manager replied, calm but firm. Because you are being notified that your actions have been recorded. If further unauthorized attempts occur, we may be required to cooperate with legal authorities. I turned to my son. He finally looked at me, really looked, as if seeing me not as an endless resource, but as a person he had put at risk. You called me not family, I said quietly, but you tried to use me as a key. Today you're going to learn something. A key can also lock doors. Right then my phone vibrated on the table. A new notification. Emergency access requested. Mark took one look and almost smiled. They tried one more push from the app, he said, tilting the screen so the manager could see. Good. Now we have a timestamp. The resort system had logged everything. The red envelope had a camera over it. The attempted emergency access had left a digital footprint. The trap had been real, but they had stepped in it themselves. The aftermath came faster than I expected. Not because I screamed or begged or posted vague quotes online, but because, for the first time, I stopped throwing my body over the grenade to protect the very people who had pulled the pin. Mark sent formal letters. The resort opened an internal report, attached logs, security footage, copies of the unauthorized requests. My card company reversed the fraudulent charges and flagged my account, noting, cardholder confirms no authorization for upgrades or added payers. What they had framed as helping me was now written in systems as attempted misuse and potential fraud. The power my daughter-in-law believed she had, the quiet power of someone who thinks older women don't read fine print, evaporated the moment everything left the emotional arena and entered the documented one. My son called the next morning. Once, twice, 5 times. I let the phone ring. On the 7th call, he sent a message. Mom, please, I need to talk to you. Alone. I forwarded it to Mark. He replied simply, if you want to, see him here. Not at your house. Not at his. Here. So I agreed. When my son walked into Mark's office, he looked smaller. Not physically. Something in him had deflated. The certainty, maybe, or the comfortable illusion that he could float between us forever, collecting from one and defending the other. He sat down and stared at the table for a few seconds before speaking. I didn't know it was that serious, he finally said, voice hoarse. There it was, the oldest line in the book. You knew enough, I answered. You knew enough to avoid telling me the full plan. You knew enough to send your wife to ask for codes instead of asking yourself. You knew enough to call it just family when it was convenient. He looked up then, and I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. Shame. Real shame. The kind that makes the eyes redden and the jaw tremble. His hands, usually so steady, fumbled with the edge of a paper tissue Mark had placed on the table. He tore little pieces off it without noticing, creating a small white pile of anxiety between us. She said it was just to organize things, he stammered. That you'd panic if we explained everything, that it would be better to just handle it for you. She said you were getting more forgetful, that we had to think long term. Long term, I repeated. Funny. Long term for who? He let out a sound that was half sigh, half sob. I'm sorry, Mom, he said, tears finally spilling over. I didn't want to choose. I thought if I didn't look too closely, it wouldn't be so bad. I believed the tears. I always would. He was my son, but I didn't mistake his crying for transformation. Tears wash guilt, but they don't sign change. I love you, I said. That has never been the problem. But here's what you need to understand. Forgiveness is not a free pass. It is not a return ticket to the old dynamic where I pay, you minimize, and she decides when I count as family. He reached across the table, trying to hold my hand. I pulled back gently. From now on, I continued, any topic involving money, property, or documents will not go through you. It will go through Mark. You will have 0 access to my accounts, 0 expectations about my card. If you come to me, it will be as a son, not as a project manager for my life. He swallowed hard, eyes darting to Mark, then back to me. Can we start over? He asked. I mean, not like before, but can I still come see you? Can I call? Yes. I said. But understand this, we are not going back. There is no before to return to. There is only what you build from now on. If you want to be my son in truth, prove it with consistent actions, not with urgency when your life is on fire. As for her, the consequences were colder, more objective. The resort banned her from making changes to any reservation linked to my profile. Her name was tagged internally. Any attempt to access my bookings would trigger a verification process directly with me. The fraudulent charges were reversed, and the bank opened a fraud case, with her email actions in the resort system as part of the evidence. Mark sent a letter warning that any further attempt to manipulate my finances or representation could result in a civil action. Real words, on real paper, sent to her real address. Not a family fight, a legal notice. And like people of her kind often do when a scheme collapses, she shifted instantly into victim mode. Vague posts online about being betrayed by those you only tried to help. Messages to relatives painting me as confused and influenced by outsiders. The difference now was simple. I didn't need to defend myself with long speeches. I had something she couldn't fabricate out of thin air. Proof, timestamps, emails, logs, reversals, letters, and my own newly discovered boundary. I would no longer sacrifice myself to keep her version of the story comfortable. I drove home from Mark's office as the sky was turning that deep blue that comes before night. For the first time in a very long time, I walked into my own house and felt something unfamiliar. Not emptiness, not loneliness. Silence, but the good kind. The kind that comes when no one is draining you on the other side of a glowing screen. I made myself a cup of tea. Not the rushed kind you forget on the counter while answering a dozen messages. I waited for the water to boil. I watched the steam. I sat on the porch with the mug between my hands and listened to the wind moving through the trees, the distant sound of a car, a dog barking 2 streets away. No new notifications, no, "Can you help just this once?" No guilt-soaked voice notes, just me. And a life that for the first time in years felt truly mine. Over the next days, I didn't change my life with grand gestures. I changed it with small, deliberate corrections, like someone slowly straightening a picture on the wall that had been crooked for so long everyone thought it was normal. I reviewed every access point, bank apps, shared streaming accounts, old automatic payments. I removed his phone from the trusted devices list. I changed passwords I hadn't touched in a decade. I sat with Mark and went through my documents one by one. My will, property titles, insurance policies. We updated clauses, clarified beneficiaries, closed the little maybe someday doors I had left open out of guilt. I did something I should have done years ago. I stopped buying love. I stopped funding invitations. I stopped paying admission to tables where I was never really given a chair. My son started appearing in smaller, quieter ways. No more urgent calls about bills. No more, "Can you just," texts. Sometimes it was a simple message. "How are you today?" 3 words. No request attached. When he visited, he came empty-handed. No new problem to lay at my doorstep. We talked about the weather, a show he'd watched, how Eli was doing at school. Ordinary things. Honest things. I didn't become stone. I didn't shut down my heart. I became something far more dangerous to abusers, an adult with boundaries. One afternoon, as I was organizing a drawer I hadn't opened in months, an email notification lit up my phone. Subject: Case resolution, unauthorized charges, and account protection. It was from my card company. "Dear Ms.," it began, "we confirm that all disputed resort-related charges have been reversed. A fraud case has been completed, and your account is now flagged for enhanced protection. Attached, please find a full report with timestamps of the unauthorized attempts." Attached was a PDF. At the bottom, in neat corporate language, one line stood out: "Cardholder not at fault. Third-party misuse confirmed." Another email arrived the same week, this time from the resort. They attached an internal incident report, date, time, IP addresses, front desk notes. A line about guest's daughter-in-law attempting to obtain signature under pressure, followed by primary guest arrived in person with legal counsel. Justice doesn't always show up as a judge's hammer. Sometimes it appears as a line in a report where, for the first time, the system writes in black and white, "The problem was not you." I sat on my porch again that evening, the printed reports next to my tea, and felt a strange mix of grief, and relief. Grief for the version of motherhood I had imagined, the one where I'm always welcome, always included, always safe. Relief for the woman I had finally chosen to be, one who knows that love without boundaries is not love. It's a liability. Here's what I learned and what I want you to sit with for a moment. Silence can be a shield for a while. It can keep the peace on the surface, but speaking at the right time with the right proof can save your life, your money, your sanity. I didn't go to that resort to cause trouble. I went to stop my love from being turned into a weapon against me. Now I want to ask you, what would you have done in my place? What boundaries are healthy when the people closest to you say, it's for your own good, while slowly trying to take your voice, your choices, your keys? Share your story in the comments. Someone out there is still thinking they're overreacting, while their access, their money, and their dignity are being quietly rearranged behind their back. Your experience might be the proof they need to wake up. And if you want more stories like this, real, raw, and with receipts, stay here with us. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and don't miss the next chapter. Because maybe the next story isn't just entertainment. Maybe it's the one that finally gives you the courage to change your own.